Hello to everyone. Thank you all for joining me at this time. My name is Shavi Zane, and today I'm coming on to do a reading in regards to the corruption of the foster care system. I will be doing a part one and a part two. This part one is we're going to pick up on the energy of the foster care system and what it is doing specifically to melanated children, being that they are the majority, or they are more likely targeted by the U.S. corporation and their structure of the foster care system than any other group of people. And in the part two, I will be discussing a specific case surrounding two young boys who were kidnapped back in 2020 by the name of Sincere and Classic, also known as um, Orion and Orson West. Okay, so the part two will be surrounding their case. The reason why I'm coming forward to do this message is because I've been exposing many parts of the criminal U.S. corporation, the structure itself. Okay, I've gone into religion. I've gone into the strategic measures that they're using against people through the healthcare system, through their current measures that they're trying to use by pushing, certain injections on the masses. And so I've gone into the music industry, exposing the music. So I've been given various times, I've been shown, okay, it's time for you to come forward and bring this in. Now, the reason why I'm doing this in regards to the foster care system is because while it may not relate to many of you on a personal level, um, when I bring these messages forward, I look at this as being the opportunity to present evidence, to have you all as eyewitnesses, or what I might call the jury of the evidence that I present. And I take all of this before the Most High God. Okay? I hand and I present to the Most High the evidence that I've been able to gather. You all are the jury. You all are the witnesses. Just like if you was to go on trial before one of many of these criminal judges. And this is how I'm bringing the evidence forward, so that in the physical realm, it has been established that it has been brought forth and that other people are aware of it. So you all can also exercise your authority in the spiritual realm to cast out and to bring down and to bring destruction over the heads of the U.S. corporation and their agenda against foster children, specifically melanated children, and also to take it before the Most High God so that He can establish the highest form of righteous judgment and justice on the behalf of our children. Okay, so some of you might have personally experienced being in a foster care system. I personally have experienced it myself from a very young age, from the age of 2 to 8, and then I was adopted out to someone who was no better than the foster care system that I actually came from. And so I've experienced it on different levels. And I've also watched close family members who was in foster care as well get beaten very badly with extension cords by their foster parents, molestation, uh, fighting amongst the children in group homes. Like, I know it's a lot of really bad things that go on in the foster care system, especially for melanated children. And so I want to bring forward some of these statistics before I start pulling the cards in terms of the energy of this particular structure. And so I also have some messages that I was able to channel in from my spiritual team. So I want to start there. Well, no, I'm going to start with the statistics, then I'm going to go into that. So we have here nearly half a million children, approximately 424,000 children are in foster care. Okay, this is as of 2020. Okay, approximately 424,000 children are in foster care on any given day. Okay, around 23,000 children in the foster care system age out of the system every year. So they age out, meaning they're there from a little child all the way up until they're 18 years old, and at that point they're pretty much set out to go and figure it out. Okay, and it says many have no permanent placement lined up when they turn 18 and end up homeless. Okay, so they have no permanent placement. lined up for them once they age out of the foster care system, okay? So they become 18 and they're pretty much just thrown out there to the wolves and, told to go and figure it out. So this so-called structure has nothing in place for these children, knowing that many of them at that point have been disconnected from their family members. They don't really have a close connection with them, and they don't have the resources to create stability for themselves because it's not provided for them when they're set out into the street at 18 years old. Okay, we have here within 4 years of aging out of the system, 50% have no earnings. Half of these children have no earnings whatsoever. Well, adults at this point. And those who do not make an average, and those who do make an average annual income, it is of about $7,500 a year, okay? So those who do make money make about $7,500 a year. Now that is definitely poverty. So you might as well say they either end up homeless or they end up in poverty. Half of them are homeless, half of them are in poverty, okay? So this is what's happening for those children who have aged out of the foster care system. Most do not qualify for entry-level jobs due to the lack of skills or resources needed to launch them into employment, okay? We have here every 2 minutes, a child is removed from their home and placed into foster care. Of every 1,000 white children, 5.2 are in foster care, okay? Of every 1,000 black children, 9.9 are in foster care. So that's almost double, okay? And this is why I'm specifically focusing this in on melanated children, because it's very clear that melanated children are directly targeted by the foster care system. They have a vested interest in melanated children specifically. Then we have here, of every 1,000 American Indians or American Indian natives, 16.9 are in foster care according to the National Child Maltreatment Statistics, okay? So American Indian or native to this land, which many melanated people are just that, 16.9 of them out of every 1,000 are in foster care. So then also we have here 74.9% are there because of neglect. Now, please keep in mind that these people, neglect is a very widely, it's like an open-ended term, okay? Because neglect is not specifically targeting, it can be anything. It can be anything, okay? You could have not washed your child's dreads the proper way, and they will say that that's neglect, okay? Most of the time when these caseworkers go out to people's homes, it's because of anonymous phone calls, okay? They have anonymous callers that will initiate a report on someone, and then they send these caseworkers out to investigate, and that's how they end up opening cases and, inserting themselves into people's lives, okay? And at that point, they try to find any reason to take the child. I myself have experienced this as of a few months ago. I had an anonymous caller call on me and say that I was neglecting my children and that I was a prostitute, okay? They actually sent police officers to my residence, and the police officer said, ma'am, someone called and said that you were neglecting your children. And then his statement after that was, well, and also, guess what else they said? They said you was a prostitute. So I said, okay, first of all, he made light of it as if it was something humorous to him. But secondly, it would seem that he would have been more concerned about the prostitution allegations than the so-called neglect allegations. But either way, I asked him who made this phone call. Even when the CPS workers came out, they said, well, we can't tell you. Technically, we have to protect the person that made the phone call. So these people can come up with any way, any measure to try and create some sort of scenario to try and take your children, okay? They have a vested interest in why they do this. And I told you all in previous videos that the U.S. corporation Once you actually sign over a social security number, when you create that for your child in the hospital when they're born, when you create a birth certificate for your child in the hospital when they are born, that's when the U.S. corporation says that they are technically a ward of of the state. Okay, even you yourself as an adult would be considered a ward of the state, which is why these people can come in and they can take your property, they can take your children, they can take your homes, they can take all of these different things, because when you sign that document, that's what you're signing over unknowingly in your own ignorance, though. And these people know that they've done this underhandedly for so long. And this is why in the age of Aquarius, everything is being brought forward. Everything is being revealed. Nothing can be hidden. They was hiding their hand for a very long time. And so this is why when it comes to these allegations, when it comes to CPS, a child protective service, services coming out to your home and these things, you always want to stand your ground and do not sign any damn thing. Don't put your signature on nothing, because that's another thing. I feel like moving into this, as we continue to unravel and to unveil the wickedness of the system, they're trying to use different tactics and different measures to try and take people's children from them, okay, because they feel that they have the right to do so. They see your children as being their property, okay? That's why they're considered to be a ward of the state. Even before CPS gets involved in a person's life, they see them as a ward of the state automatically, because they have a social security number and a birth certificate. And that's what gives them the so-called right to come in and take the children, even if they don't have true cause to do it. It's kidnapping is what they're doing, okay? Criminals who come in to kidnap children. That's what they was doing when actual slavery existed here on this land. But they didn't have to use the term of CPS and foster care and all of that. No, they would just come in and just outright steal your child and put them to work, put them to labor on their behalf, okay? And so this is what they're doing now, but they're doing it in a very deceptive way. Okay, they're playing politics with you, doing it in a very deceptive way, trying to cloak it as being, well, we're coming in, we're protecting, we're here as the child protective services. But I'm here to tell you that from the majority of the children that get placed into foster care or in group homes, more children are molested, sexually abused, molested, verbally abused, financially abused, emotionally abused, and physically abused when they go into the foster care system than they are when they're actually at home with their natural born parents, okay? They're more likely to be abused in all ways in the foster care system than they are at home with their natural born parents. That's a fact. But these people hide that information, okay? They cover it up. They do not want people, to the general public, to know this, because then you would have to question, well, if children are more likely to be abused under your structure, then why are you all snatching them up every 2 minutes? A child is being abused. A child is being removed from their home. Why are you all snatching them up at such high rates and specifically targeting melanated children? If you know, but that's why they won't bring those things, those statistics to the forefront, okay? Because then they would have some questions to answer. So these are facts here. So let's see. So they say 74.9% are placed into foster care because of neglect, which, like I said, anything could be counted as neglect if they see it as being fit, right? Then 17.5% are placed into foster care because they are abused in some way. 9.3% are placed in foster care because of sexual abuse. And then 6.1% are in foster care because of they've been psychologically maltreated. And let's see, it says here about 40% of foster children are arrested since exiting the system. About 40% of children end up getting arrested some kind of way for whatever reason upon exiting the system, okay? This is generally between the ages of, I think, between 20 and about 25 years old. They end up having a record some kind of way, whether it's a misdemeanor or something that's greater. 15% are convicted of actual crimes. So you mean to tell me that a system that is structured to so-called protect children, child protective services, not only are the children more likely to be abused, but they're also more likely to end up homeless, to end up in poverty, making no more than $7,500 a year. They're more likely to get charged with convictions and crimes, okay? They're more likely to And then you know that there's many other things that factor into that, because if you're dealing with poverty, if you're dealing with homelessness, if you're dealing with not having a support system, then there's other things that these children will end up getting themselves wrapped up in. Bad relationships, karmic relationships, depression, going through mental illness, all types of things that they'll get themselves wrapped up in because they just came from a system that was not structured to support them. Melanated children came out of a system, the foster care system, that was not structured to support them. It was actually structured to break them down even further. And this is why most of the time those foster parents who have these children, case in point, the two twins who came up missing from the couple's house after being adopted by them, about 3 months later they end up missing by the same people. And these people specifically had foster children in their possession prior to getting sincere and sincere and classic. They had foster children. So that's why I'm going to do a part 2 specifically looking into what took place when it came to those children, because I'm gonna tell you what I was shown here in terms of my spiritual team outside of the statistics that you might find through Google. So the U.S. corporation is actually, you already know that they have secret societies. They've been doing many things in secret. In the age of Pisces, that was the time of being able to do things in the dark, okay? And so many of these secret societies was created during that time. And so they had a lot of religious groups, not just religious groups, but the political structure, the judicial structure. All of these people was in cahoots with these secret societies, okay? And so they built their wealth on bringing these secret societies together. What I heard was that the Moors and many karmic family members came together. It's like an agreement, a contractual agreement that was made. I also heard that it was made in blood, okay? Contractual agreement to have certain people within the family sacrificed in order to gain their inheritance, which is attached to their social security number and their birth certificate, to gain their inheritance, and also in order to keep many of these people out of karmic judgment, okay? And so, for instance, you might have a family member who is facing a life sentence in prison because they might have murdered someone, right? And so they team up, many of these Moors, because it kept coming out. It's been coming out a lot in regards to the Moors, okay? Many of the Moors, who is generally predominantly melanated people, because I'm speaking on melanated children in the foster care system. Many of these Moors end up sacrificing specific people in their family, okay? So you might have an uncle. Let's say you have an uncle who committed a murder and he's facing his a life sentence. He ends up getting sentenced, let's say he ends up getting 10 years some kind of way. You don't really know why he got 10 years. You think that he just got lucky, or, he just got a blessing out of nowhere. But you find out that he's actually directly connected to the Moors. And he has created a contractual agreement with them, okay, to sacrifice someone in his family to prevent himself from having to deal with the karmic debt that he incurred through his actions of murdering someone. And so in exchange for him getting out of prison, he places someone at the forefront as his sacrifice. So he might choose his niece. He might say his niece and her children are now the sacrifice for him, to help him to clear out his karmic debt and to also gain some sort of financial reward. Okay, if there's no financial reward attached to it for him, there's definitely a financial reward attached to it for those people that he makes the contractual agreement with. So the Moors end up gaining some sort of financial payout, as well as those who they are working alongside with the U.S. corporation, with the corrupt U.S. corporation. So they come together, okay? Because the Moors, not all Moors are bad, but many of them, I'm telling y'all what I know. Many of them have signed themselves away in blood, okay? Many of them work alongside the Illuminati. So what happens is, in terms of the foster children, how this fits in is the U.S. corporation has always needed slaves in order to maintain its system. That's how it was built, and that's how they have maintained it. And so today, the modern day slaves would be with your natural eyes, you would say, okay, it's those who are in the prison system. But even outside of that, it's not just those who are actually in physical prison. It's those who are actually underneath the structure that are still attached to the structure through the social security number and the birth certificate. That specific document, those two specific documents, link you directly to the enslavement that these people have constructed underhandedly and behind closed doors. You don't see it, but that's exactly what it is. Your social security number and your birth certificate links you directly to these people as a ward of the state. And so Moors, many of these Moors have actually committed crimes, okay? There's some of them who have not committed crimes, but many of those who are on the dark side of things have committed crimes. And they have gathered up, they have accumulated a certain amount of karmic debt that they end up signing off in blood. They agree to sacrifice other people in their family, or you might have a family member, someone might have a family member that joins this group on the dark side of things to avoid their own karma, and they say, well, okay, well, I'm going to agree to put my niece up as a sacrifice. And so that sacrifice can look like them doing things against her to try to take her children and placing the children within the foster care system, because at that point the children are now at the mercy of the U.S. corporation. And so that's how specifically this case between the two young boys, the two twins who were kidnapped, they were placed up as a sacrifice, okay? And so this is why it's a cold case. Nobody knows where they're at. No one knows what happened, but we're going to get to that in video 2. But these are the types of situations. Not all of them end up missing per se, but it'll be a situation where ultimately they end up homeless. Okay, so that places them in a very low vibrational state where they might end up, you know, if you're homeless, like completely homeless with nowhere to go, you're more likely to get yourself involved in situations where you can ultimately have a premature death. Okay, whether that's involving yourself in like gang related activity, or becoming some sort of prostitute, or becoming hooked on drugs. They end up in different types of situations that will place them in a position to ultimately lose their lives prematurely. And then people would look at it and say, well, you know, Demetrius was always a troubled child because they grew up in foster care. And so it's not really an unlikely thing that he would end up in a gang and get killed at the age of 20. But the whole time it was all set up. It was strategically set up as a sacrifice to cover the karmic debt of his uncle, who decided to work alongside the Moors, and they created a scenario. There's dark magic also involved in this, just to let you all know. And this is why I'm going to go ahead and start pulling the cards, but I just wanted to tell y'all what was told to me before. So yes, these people have these contractual agreements behind the scenes with the U.S. corporation to sacrifice specific individuals within the family to avoid karma, okay? And I also have here, when one is initiated into the cult, the other is chosen, another is chosen as a sacrifice. So one person is initiated. That uncle who was facing who was facing life in prison, makes an agreement with the U.S. corporation, as well as those who are on the dark side of the Moors, and they come together. He signs an agreement in blood, and he says, okay, as a result of me not receiving this sentence, I'm placing my niece up for a sacrifice, okay? And then the other person who was placed up as a sacrifice, then this is agreed by the family that they are now enslaved to the system, okay? There's lots of money that's involved. The trust that is attached, like I said, to the birth certificate and the social security number is separated amongst the members of this occult group, okay? Those who are a part of the Moors as well as those who are a part of the U.S. corporation. And so it's almost like taking someone, let's say we go way back, a couple, 100 plus years to slavery, and we'll say that, okay, a slave is placed on the platform, they bid for this slave, and then whoever purchases a slave receives the benefits of that slave. They get that slave for the rest of their lives to work and to do labor for them, and so they accumulate a specific amount of money, and then after the slave is a certain age, they might decide to trade the slave out, to sell the slave to another slave owner, or to trade it out for a younger slave and say, okay, well, I want to, and I'm not going to say slave owner, to another kidnapper, because I told you I don't like to call these bastards slave masters or slave owners. Another kidnapper will place a bid up for this particular kidnapped melanated person and say, okay, well, now she's 45, she can't really do much labor anymore, but she can cook, so I want her over here, and I also want her to be my whore, okay, which that's how they see it, as being a bed wench, okay, those types of things. So bringing it, fast forwarding it to today, many of those, a lot of the more sold out, okay, and they ended up going against each other. Some of them went on the side of the U.S. corporation to join these secret societies, and then you have others who do things from a righteous space, who are really just about sovereignty and, coming together in unity to help people to understand that they are indigenous to the land and things of that nature. But those who are on the dark side are the ones who are there to help to trade out the so-called slave, right? Which would be the family member that gets put up as a ransom for the uncle who has decided to sign himself off in blood to prevent receiving his karmic debt, the karmic debt that he's accumulated, okay? Most of the time, the people that are put up for sacrifice are the chosen. Most of the time, they are the chosen. The more specifically, they study the occult sciences, okay? The occult just means hidden knowledge. The more study the occult sciences, they have they're very well versed when it comes to astrology, astronomy, your astrological chart, who you may become based on that particular aspect of your blueprint. If they look into your astrological chart, all they need is just 4 pieces of information: where you was born, your full name, your birth date, and the time that you was born, which they would likely get that from a family member who has access to your documentation, or the U.S. corporation who may decide that they want to say, okay, I've decided to handpick this particular person because they possess these types of gifts. They are established to be this particular type of leader based on their astrological chart, and so I want to enslave this particular person. I want to create stumbling blocks for this particular person so that I can ensure that they are always within my grip. I'm talking about the U.S. corporation. So they'll work alongside a Moor who may be a direct family member of the person, or they might have a family member, like I said, who has joined with them that is deciding to use this person as their ransom. And they're usually chosen. They always target the chosen, but not all of them are, the chosen, but most of them are, okay? And so they have a bigger interest. It's not just about the financial security. It's also about, in the spiritual realm, what that does in terms of, now that we're in the age of Aquarius, they've always had a vested interest in targeting the chosen, because in a spiritual realm, once we awaken to who we are and we step into our power, then we completely destroy and dismantle their structure by pretty much declaring and decreeing in the spiritual realm and taking back our authority in the spiritual realm, and then things manifest in the physical. And so their agenda was to sacrifice as many of the chosen as possible to prevent the chosen from stepping into their power, so that they could always maintain their so-called structure and their so-called power over the masses, especially the melanated children, man, woman, and child. And so this is how the foster care system comes into place, because once they put a child into foster care, let's say, like I said, the uncle has chosen the niece as his sacrifice. So the Moors, they also, many of them that's on the dark side practice dark magic. They'll create energy to cause mental disruption for the woman. They'll create energy to cause disruption within her relationship, so that there's a lot of physical abuse within the relationship, so that there's a lot of police involvement, so they can create a track record. They'll use dark magic to cause disruption in her own children, so that the children are more disruptive in terms of their behavior. And so if this woman is overwhelmed or has a lot going on, if she lashes out or does something, they create a scenario so that ultimately the children can be taken away. And so once the children are placed into the foster care system, then now they're able to do as they will, because now it's been established. The documents, the false documents, have been signed to establish that this child is now their official slave, okay? Because you have a family member who has sold them out. And so now they have direct permission to do it, because they've received that permission from a family member who did that to avoid their own karma. And so that's why you end up with cases like these two young boys who ultimately ended up missing as a result of what they have done. So let's go into it. Let's get right into it. Let's see. All right, separation is what's coming out first, okay? When I did shuffle this deck, my specific question was the agenda of the U.S. corporation against, and the foster care system against melanated children. So the first card that's coming out is separation. Obviously, they want to separate the children from their natural parents, okay? Because they're more likely to actually grow up in a healthier environment with their natural parents than they are in the foster care system, like I told you all. Whether the statistics show that or not, it is a fact. And I can say this from my own experience and from the experience of many people that I know who was in a foster care system, especially melanated children. So the goal is to separate them from their natural parents and to place them in homes with either karmic family members who are going to abuse them, or foster parents or group homes where they will also be abused there. And there's another 6% of them or more that are placed into actual institutions, like mental institutions. And many of them that are there don't even have a medical reason, okay, to be in those institutions. Or they end up staying past their time once they've received the treatment. They still end up keeping them there because they have an interest and they have a reason why they're doing this. They want to keep them drugged up on medication so that by the time they release them, they end up having a codependency on drugs, okay? So let's see what else. What is the agenda of the U.S. corporation concerning the foster care system and melanated children? So I got two cards that came out. I have hate, and then I have no growth, okay? So hate and no growth. They obviously hate melanated people, okay? The U.S. corporation, the system was built by racist people, okay? If you don't know that by now, then you are still very much so asleep. So anytime you have a structure that was built by racists, it was built by people that hate melanated people, then obviously the system still stands in that same energy. Okay, the root of the system is that of racism, and so all facets of it still exist in that same energy. And this is why the melanated man, woman, and child are still considered to be the lowest in terms of their place in society. Okay, because this is what the structure that's what the structure was made to do. So no growth. Okay, no growth. So when they put them in the foster care system, they don't want them to grow. And this is why they don't have anything in place for these children to ensure that when they age out of the system, that they have the resources necessary to ensure that they have an adequate amount of income, to ensure that they're able to get a job that's going to help them to sustain their living conditions, and to ensure that they just have the right amount of support. They just throw them out there, just, and just tell them to go and figure it out. And so how can you really grow from there when you don't have the the support. Now, am I saying it's impossible to grow? No. But what is the likelihood that they will actually be able to rise up from that situation, coming from abuse, coming from neglect, coming from lack mentality, coming from mental health issues, coming from people that did not have any emotional interest in them? Because many of these foster parents are very cold-hearted people, and you best believe that the U.S. corporation, they know who they're choosing when they allow someone to become a foster parent. They got to screen these people first before they even are able to become a foster parent, okay? And so they know who the hell they picking for these children. They know, if they're looking at your astrological chart, they know that if they give you a certain type of mother, if they looking at your moon sign, and they know, okay, well, based on their moon sign, I'm going to give them this woman as their foster mother, because this particular woman, based on her astrological chart, is very cold in her energy. She herself did not have XYZ. She herself was probably sexually abused or had lack mentality or whatever. And they place these children, everything that they do is strategic, okay? And if you think these people are not doing things like that detailed down to the T, then you're still blind. Okay, these people know exactly what they're doing, and they know why they place specific children in specific homes and in specific environments, because what they want to do is they want to breed, or they want to create a certain type of outcome for that child. So it's almost like when you're doing a scientific experiment, you know that if you place a specific, let's just say you're growing a certain type of plant, and you place it in a specific environment that is meant to create a certain type of atmosphere for that plant. You know that the likelihood of that plant coming out a specific way is more likely, because you strategically place them in a specific environment so that it would grow to be a certain type of way. Okay, sorry that example was not the best, but you all might be able to keep up. I'm pretty sure you are catching on to what I'm saying. So they place these children in specific type of foster care systems or group homes, surrounded by certain type of people, children, other children who have also been abused and neglected, who might have mental health issues. Because a lot of the times, if they're not being abused by the foster parent themselves, and they're being abused by the children that they're in the actual foster home or group home with, okay? Because these places, they can get very violent and chaotic in nature, okay? So no growth. There is done from a space of hate, and they're largely targeting these children to separate them from their natural parents, okay? So let's see what else is coming out in terms of the agenda. So we have here self-govern. And then, okay, at the bottom of the deck, now I understand why that's there. We have here separate from the system. Self-govern and separate from the system. So, yeah, they're doing this because they know that if these children was raised with their natural parents, okay, the likelihood of them being abused is far less. The likelihood of them coming out being completely in poverty is far less. And so they know that moving now into the age of, being that we're now in the age of Aquarius, many people have awakened, okay? Those who was supposed to awaken have already awakened. And so the likelihood of these children being raised around those people is very frightening to the U.S. corporation, because they know that if you have an awakened parent, then you're going to raise a child who is very well aware of the corruption of the system. And so that child will naturally resist and want to rebel and want to self-govern, okay, rather than having criminals tell them what to do, where to go, how to be, because they see right through it. The veil is already off of their eyes before they even age out of, their own parents' home, or before they separate from their parents' home, because it's been taught to them. Their parents have set an example of, we don't celebrate those holidays. What is Columbus Day? No, we not putting our hand over our heart talking about I pledge allegiance to the flag. No, we not running around putting no white Jesus up on the wall. No, we're not going to sit up here talking about it's Labor Day, let's go barbecue. No, we're going to talk about the real reason why Thanksgiving is being celebrated. Okay, we're going to talk about the real reason why all of these things are going to be taught to a child who is raised up and reared up by their natural parents who are awakened. And so imagine this is happening in many melanated homes, people who are equipping their children and preparing their children to self-govern and to separate themselves from a crooked and corrupt system, that's very intimidating for these people. This is why they've always targeted melanated people specifically, because it is us who they are more intimidated by than any other group of people. That much is clear. Okay? And so this is why they have this foster care system in place, so that they can kidnap people's children. And when they kidnap their children, they can indoctrinate them. They can brainwash them. They can place them in environments that's going to lower their vibrations, that's going to cause them to have self-esteem issues, that's going to cause them to have self-worth issues. And even now that they are pushing many of these VACCINEs, right? Okay, I'm pretty sure that these foster homes and these group homes have they have the children lined up to get those. Okay, I'm pretty sure that they do, because at that point they can say, oh well, because they're a ward of the state, and because they're in an environment where there's multiple children there, and because doctors recommend this for the safety of XYZ. At that point the parents have no say so. Okay, and most of the children have not been taught. They have not been taught to refuse these things. Okay, because the foster parents are not interested in teaching them things about themselves, or making them aware of the corruption of the system. They just want to check. And so they'll put these children directly in line to get these things. Okay, and so now they're tampering with the DNA of these children to ensure that they never fully awaken to their divinity and do what's necessary to self-govern and to separate themselves from the system. Okay, so this is all a strategic measure, to rebuild. Okay, they recognize that many of these children, if they are not when they're directly placed in these types of scenarios, they're less likely. They are far less likely to have the knowledge that is necessary to separate themselves from the corruption of the system, or to even know what the agenda is. Okay, because many of them will be so focused on being in survival mode that they're not going to be interested in trying to find out about sovereignty or finding out about the corruption of the structure, because they're going to be more focused on when they're going to get their next meal, or if they end up on drugs, how they're going to get their next fix, or if they end up being a part of a gang or in prison, all of these things, when are they going to get out? They're not going to be focused in on these things. And so that's the agenda here. Look at this, y'all. I just told you Moors are involved. This ain't no damn joke. Then this says false male friend. So usually it's somebody who's in the family, whether it's a false friend or a karmic family member who is directly involved with the Moors, okay? Who is directly involved with the Moors, who either become a Moor, more than likely they become a Moor. So you might have a false male friend in the family. It can be anybody, false male friend, false female friend, karmic family member that's directly, they are a Moor. They have become a Moor. They become initiated, and they're avoiding some sort of karma, and they end up selling out another family member as a result of that to try and clear out their karmic debt. And some of them even get paid under the table to do these things. Okay, this says truth. Okay, then we have, look at this, I told y'all, sacrifice you. Okay, so they're doing this to sacrifice these children. And then we have here, what's behind that? Hidden money. This is not no damn game, y'all. And this is why I bring this evidence forward, because as I bring this evidence forward, this is not really for, when two or more join, that's enough for me. If only one person watched this video and said, okay, based on the evidence that was presented, these people are just got doggone corrupt, and I'm going to go ahead and take this before the Most High God, because based on the evidence, I can clearly see, and my intuition, I can clearly feel that these people are corrupt and they're doing this against these children. It's clear. I just told you all of the notes that was brought to me when I asked what this was all about. Okay, sacrificing these children, these Moors, who are also a part, because we're talking about the melanated children now, the foster system, the U.S. corporation, and the Moors, and other secret society structures such as the Illuminati and the Masons, different groups like that. They come together. They all have a pact. Okay, they have a coven that they take because of the hidden money, which is attached to the social security number, which is attached to the birth certificate. They see these children as being slaves of the system, wards of the state. Okay, and those who have been able to create sovereignty for themselves as a Moor, they end up escaping many of the criminal behavior that they participate in because they have a contractual agreement with these people. Those who are operating on the dark side have a contractual agreement with these people that as long as you continue to bring us our sacrifices, as long as you continue, look at this, bottom of the deck, working with the U.S. corporation, okay? It doesn't get any less plain than that, okay? Working with the U.S. corporation, Moors are involved. They have these contractual agreements to sacrifice these children, and there's usually a karmic family member or a friend of the family who ends up selling them out to avoid their karma. What else is coming out here? We have hundreds of thousands of dollars. Then we have addictions, okay? So like I was telling you all, they end up creating some sort of havoc, some sort of addiction, some sort of scenario. Like I said, a lot of dark magic is involved in this, okay, in order to create addictions for like the mothers or, you know, the fathers of the family. But much of the time it's the mothers, okay? Yeah, and they bring forth this false ass evidence. So when they have these CPS workers that are called, they have these so-called anonymous phone calls, and they bring forth false evidence against the women of these children, because much of the time the father is not there. They like to target women who do not have a strong support system, okay? So they'll target a mother who does not have, like they'll pick someone within the family. They might, let's just say it's a chosen that's in the family, right? They'll ostracize that chosen one. They'll push that chosen one out of the family, especially if you got all of them that's karmic. Most chosen seeds, damn near all of your family is karmic, okay? And so they'll push that person to the side, the woman and her children, the chosen woman and her children to the side. They'll isolate them. They'll make them feel as if they're not welcome in the family, some way, shape, or form. Then they'll create bonds and contractual agreements. These are usually already in place, though, with these Moors and with the U.S. corporation. And they'll start working dark magic on these people. They'll start doing dark magic on her finances in order to create stumbling blocks for her there. They'll start doing dark magic on her health, on her children, on her mental health. If she already has an issue with addictions, then they'll do dark magic to further enhance that addiction. And then they swoop in with false evidence with these CPS workers who come in from with these anonymous phone calls, making accusations against that mother. And then ultimately, if she's not strong enough mentally, if she's not awakened to what's going on, if she hasn't done the work to heal herself, generally she ends up falling right into the trap. Because if that woman is going through things, she might have an addiction to marijuana. She might have an addiction to pills. She might have multiple men that's helping her to provide for her family if she has not figured out a way to come out of lack mentality. She might have she might be hot-tempered towards her children if they're unruly, especially if they're sending dark magic towards that particular household to create havoc or chaotic scenarios there. This is all spiritual before it is physical. So if you feel like it's far-fetched, then you're not that far awakened in terms of the spiritual aspect of this thing. Please know that we are spirits having a human experience. And so these people understand that they have to manipulate in the spiritual realm first in order for it to manifest in the physical. So they create these scenarios from a distance. They throw stones and hide their hands. They do these things from the darkness, okay? And they have an agenda, though. The agenda is all about the money, okay? And it's more than this. I feel like those who are on the smaller scale, they get hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain. And they're addicted to doing this to people, so they do this for generations. This is not something that they just started doing. They've been doing this for generations, okay? And then those who are at the top of this, like the U.S. corporation, and those who are like the Illuminati or secret societies, they're the ones that's getting millions, billions of dollars on the backs of people who are ignorant to what they are doing. So you have those who know what's happening and they're working with them and they getting the little pennies and they think they're doing something. And then you have those who are at the top of this, who are usually the races that are involved in the U.S. corporation, who have built the U.S. corporation, the judges, the crooked attorneys, the A lot of the social workers, but they're like on a smaller scale, the smaller end of the scale, but they work hand in hand with this. They know exactly what's going on. They'll send in a specific social worker who has already made a contractual agreement. She knows that these things are underhanded, but she's working with them because they know that person has been selected as a sacrifice. So they have all types of people that's involved in this. Police officers, okay, teachers who are also involved in this, doctors who are also involved in this to diagnose certain mental illnesses and certain things like that. And so then we have here, look at this. Y'all think I'm playing. Y'all think I'm just talking. What does that say? I'm bringing forth the evidence right now. That says blocked finances and dark magic. This is what they do. They do things to block the finances of these mothers, okay, so that the woman who already is probably lacking support of a man within the household, the melanated woman, is already lacking support. She's been ostracized from her family. She's been has no actual support of the family because they're all karmic family members who know what's going on. They know that she's being put up to be sacrificed on behalf of someone else and on behalf of financial of payout that they're getting up underneath the table. And so they'll block her finances using dark magic. So they'll do things to try to stop the finances of these women so that they're not able to take care of their children. So that ultimately, when they go and make that anonymous phone call to CPS, who is already in on the shit, they come knocking on the door. This woman is having financial difficulties. Kids are wreaking havoc, all types of things that they're doing through this dark magic to create certain chaotic scenarios so that they can ultimately have these children taken away, kidnapped. That's what they're doing, have these children kidnapped and then placed in the system so that then at that point, the mother ends up going through even more emotional turmoil if she's not aware of what's happening, if she's not awakened to the agenda. And then the children end up going through separation anxiety, abandonment issues, and all types of things. And these people know exactly what the hell they are doing. You better believe that before I did this reading, it was not absent of me going to the Most High God and presenting to him the evidence that I had before I even pulled these cards. It was already shown to me and revealed to me what the hell these people have been doing. Matter of fact, it's been revealed to me for quite some time now, but even more so highlighted now. You know, when you seek the answers, you will find them. These people have not created this structure for no reason. If they really thought, you better believe these people have an agenda. Anytime half of the children that age out of the system are in poverty and the other half is only making $7,000 a year. These people know what the hell they doing. This is not these people doing something because they're upright people and they have honorable intentions to try to help children, to, you know, protect them from their natural parents. No, they strip them and kidnap them from their natural parents so that they will never rise to their divinity, so that they will never awaken to separate themselves from the system, so that these people can sacrifice them for their own gain because of this money that is behind the scenes, okay? People's inheritance. They take that and they take people's inheritance, okay? They create scenarios for themselves because they don't want these children, they don't want the youth to come together and to rebuild. They don't want the youth to come together to wake up to the fact that we need to self-govern and to break ourselves away from this system, okay? So we have here honorable investigator. I'm that damn honorable investigator, okay? We will have victory as a result of this, okay? We will have victory as a result of the truth being brought forward. Because one thing about the reason why these people have been able to get away with this for so long is because we was not presenting the evidence. Why wasn't we presenting the evidence to the Most High God? Because we did not have the evidence to present. We was blinded to what was going on in the spiritual aspect of this thing. And even the physical aspect, we knew. You heard about the secret societies, you heard about the Illuminati, you heard about the Moors, you heard about, some people kind of knew about what was going on with the social security cards and the birth certificates, but it was very rare that a person would know about these things because it was kept hidden. And in our ignorance, what did most of us do? We cried in church, we begged and pleaded, but what we was crying for was to have our rent paid. What we was crying for was for our, you know, if you had your children taken away, you was praying for them to come back. But you didn't know on a much larger scale, this thing was so much bigger than just your own personal situation. This was all an agenda constructed to prevent the birth of messiahs, or to prevent these, once they're born, to prevent them from rising into their divinity, knowing who they are, and stepping into that power, because the youth is the ones that the U.S. government needs to go after at this point. The youth are the future. And so if you can strip them from their parents right away, you already cause trauma by stripping them from their parents, because at that point in their mind, they have no power, because their parents are their superheroes. And if their parents can't even prevent them from being taken away, then in their own mind, they themselves possess no power. And so that part right there already tears them down. And it already establishes a certain way of thinking towards, in terms of who they are. Okay, and then you have all of these other things that take place while they're in foster care, and then once they get out of foster care, they're still abandoned, they still have no one, and so they get themselves involved in all types of karmic mess, karmic relationships, karmic situations, and it's just one big ball of a mess for a whole generation of children who are being sacrificed on behalf of those who want to stay in power, on behalf of those who want to maintain wealth, and on behalf of those who have been doing this for generations because they've always wanted to enslave the melanated man, woman, and child. Okay? And so, unfortunately, you have some Uncle Toms, you have some sellouts who, for the sake of materialism and for a little bit of power and for what they would call freedom, are actually going against their own people to sacrifice them because they want to avoid their karmic debt. But I'm here to tell you, these people are going to suffer the consequences, because now the evidence has been brought forward. Now we have a vessel. Now we have multiple vessels, because I hope that you all are joining in with me when it comes to establishing, declaring, and decreeing that righteous judgment is established on behalf of those children who have been kidnapped by the U.S. corporation and these secret societies, and that judgment, the highest form of judgment, is casted upon the heads of those who have been involved, whether it's karmic family members, friends, loved ones, husbands, wives, judicial systems, teachers, doctors, attorneys, judges, all of them, social workers, foster parents, group home case workers, every last one of them are now going down. Okay? So let me pull one more card, and I'm going to close out, and I'm going to get started facing jail time. Yeah, they're going to take their ass to jail, okay? They're going to take their asses to jail. That's the card that we are going to end this on. Many of these people will go to jail. And they say, well, who's going to put me to jail? Because I'm working right alongside the people who are in control of the system. Well, guess what? Jail doesn't always look like steel bars. You can be jailed inside of your own mind. You can end up going crazy and not being able to use your mental faculties properly. You can end up jailed to the point where you are bedridden for the rest of your life. You can end up in jail where you're in a casket and can't do nothing about it. Jail looks like it has many different ways, okay? You can end up jailed to where you have no control over your financial wealth and abundance anymore. It's many different ways that these people will be punished, okay? And so this card just confirms exactly what I said. We brought the case forward. We brought the evidence forward. Now the Most High God is going to establish the highest form of righteous judgment on behalf of his children, because now the truth is out, okay? The truth is out. So that's what I got for you all. I'll see you all now in the next video in regards to the young twins who were kidnapped, Sincere and Classic. I'm going to look into the evidence surrounding that case. I love you all. If you want to email me, you know to check the description box. Thank you all for the likes and the subscribes, and I'll talk to you all next time.